All right, we're back. Day before Thanksgiving. Georgia Tech, 7:30 Friday. As of right now, Georgia is a 19.5 point favorite. Started out 20, really hasn't moved much. I wouldn't expect the line to move. If anything, it'll move down to another half a point, maybe a point. Give us your early thoughts and yeah.
It's a game that Georgia should win. I don't think we can afford to lose it, especially in the eyes of the committee, right? So these are all playoff games for sure. I know Tech is much better than they have been historically in the last 5 years, but I think Georgia should win this. I don't know if they'll cover. I wouldn't probably, if I were going to bet, which I'm not, I'd take Tech in the points because usually Georgia doesn't cover the spread very often.
Well, for sure. But, I think with this game being usually the argument would be, well, Tech is going to catch Georgia sleepwalking, which usually is the case. And I said in the previous video, this is the second time ever that Georgia has played Georgia Tech in prime time in my lifetime. So the only other time has been 2010 in Sanford Stadium.
Well, the other thing you got to take into account, all this is an audition for the committee, right? I know we're at number 7, but Tech beat Miami. And if we go in there and boat race Tech,
right,
and they beat Miami, I'm just trying to, this is kind of where we are with the 12-team playoff. We've got to, in my mind, we should be not only looking to beat Tech, but beat them badly. Is what I would hope.
Yeah, of course.
On paper, we should do that.
Well, here's the other thing too, and keep in mind we'll talk about more of the Tech game in a minute, but keep this in mind: Tech hasn't really played all that great on the road. They lost to Virginia Tech. The only road win that they have is against UNC, and really UNC had a chance to in that game win it, put it on ice. And to Tech's credit, they pulled it out of the fire, and Mac Brown's now going to be fired. So, I think it's because it's exciting that Tech has a pulse, and we saw kind of what they did last year to Georgia. And so there's some nervous energy around the program and around the fan base, more or less. But I'm not 100% sold. Let's talk about the playoff rankings. So Georgia's number 8, which I know we talk about this every week. I just do not understand these rankings. I don't get them. I'm fine with Oregon and Ohio State 1 and 2. You can do that all day long. It's fine. It's whatever. But Miami, Penn State, all ahead of Georgia does not make a lick of sense to me at all. And then Graham Coffey, shout out Graham, asked the CFP chair, well, why is Miami and Penn State ahead of Georgia? Well, Georgia's had has the hardest schedule in college football. And he basically said, well, you play who you play. We're not going to penalize teams for a bad whatever you call it, schedule. Thank you. I couldn't think. A bad schedule. Well, previously we were told that strength of schedule matters. Well, now it clearly does not.
No, well, you can tell that by their rankings, man. They've been telling you that all year. If you just watched ever since they started this year, you could tell that.
And honestly, if you're Georgia, if you're the SEC, I got to tell you, I don't know what you do, because to me, I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC need to pull out on this thing.
Well, that's what you do if you're the SEC. But the problem is you got the Big Ten representative. He's the chairman of the committee, right? Is former Michigan guy. So right now, that's the reason. In my opinion, that's why you see Penn State up there. But to your point, I think eventually you're going to have SEC and Big Ten just have to say, hey, we're not going to participate in this, because these automatic bids and these teams that are still, still up there, even though they have no legitimate shot. Like who's the non-Power 5. Is it Tulane at this point? Is that
No,
who's
it's Boise?
Is it Boise? Anyway, see, I don't even know. And these
UNLV can sneak in. UNLV, Boise. There's a couple of teams that can get.
And then the Big 12. Who's that?
Shit. Who is that now?
I know there's. I don't think, is it Arizona State, Kansas?
It's Arizona State.
Yeah. Well, regardless, you're telling me that they deserve, honestly, given the Big 12 as a conference, how they play, they're going to get boat raced in these games. So I think the SEC and the Big 10, frankly, have an argument that at a bare minimum, we got to have 3 teams in this thing. I mean, that's common sense.
And the other leagues are not going to agree to it.
Of course they're not.
And so, I don't know. And then, Nick Saban today on Pat McAfee's show basically said that needs to be a 40-team super conference where they all have equal scheduling, which ruins college football.
I don't even – yeah. In my opinion, until we get a goal that's defined, which is we're going to have the X number of best teams, regardless of conference, but that is our goal. We're going to have the best 12, 8, 16, whatever they're going to come to. That's the goal. That's the defining mission of whatever we put in place. If that is the case, then we can all participate. But this shit that we're watching this year, this is not the 12 best teams. It's just not.
No.
So, anyway, that's we're not going to fix it. The money is going to, it's going to ruin unfortunately, it's going to ruin a lot of what we like about college football.
Well, if you're following Bryce Underwood and his recruitment from LSU to Michigan, Izzy agrees as well. That's crazy too. I mean, LSU did everything right, and Portnoy and some rich chicks or rich wife got paid $10 million or $12 million bucks to get a kid who didn't really get recruited that hard from Michigan.
Yeah, and you heard what Saban said. They're committed. They're conditionally committed or something like that, and he called them something else. But I mean,
Right.
His opinion on this is I mean, to me, if you want to make Nick Saban the czar of college football and sit it straight, frankly, I'd be okay with that.
Well, he would have Alabama ranked number 1, regardless of what happens.
Oh, I'm not. I'm talking about setting up the rules and how we're going to come up and the objective. I mean, I don't think he needs to be voting, especially if he's going to work for ESPN. But
yeah,
I think it's going to take that kind of effort of somebody stepping in, and it's not going to be the NCAA. I don't want it to be the government. I think it's going to have to be the Big Ten and SEC doing something similar to what Nick Saban's talking about. And I agree with you. It's going to take a lot of the flavor and regionality, which is probably what they wanted to do anyway out of college football. But anyway, it's not good.
Yeah. So moving on, Georgia's injury front still not 100% clear on Colby Young. I would expect him to be back either this week or the SEC championship. Don't know when, but he should be back. Looks like Branson and Roderick Robinson are both coming back. They'll probably be limited. I would imagine that ETN is back as well. Christian Miller hasn't done a whole lot. I wouldn't expect him to play. So for now, Georgia's getting healthy at the right time and for a playoff run. And I if this Georgia offense could be at full strength and full health, I feel really good because it's starting to look like it's being put together.
Excuse me. Well, no, that's not good TV or radio. But if Colby Young gets back by some whatever legality, I'm going to take it because I think he changes, especially red zone offense. I think he gives us an added dimension to this offense. You worry about the timing and all that, but hopefully we can get him worked in. If he's able to play, I doubt he's going to play this game, but by the SEC championship and the playoff run, he may be back out there. That would be exciting. And honestly, having more than one running back that's got carries, that would be great too. You're right though. If this team can get healthy and the offense starts clicking a little bit, I know we kind of skipping around here, but I expect that Tech is going to run the ball and take the blueprint that UMass and other teams have done with us and try to run it down our throat and try to shorten the game and limit the number of possessions and hope they get a turnover. If that was, that would be my game plan. Of course, Britt Key and the staff and Buster Faulkner are much smarter than I am, but they run the ball well. And that kid that they got, what's his name? Went to Prince. He was backup. Philo. He's got, for a true freshman, he was leading that drive against North Carolina State. So he's got talent. I think they found themselves a quarterback over the next 3 years.
Yeah. So I think that's exactly what Tech's game plan is going to be. They're going to try to run the ball, kill the clock, limit possessions for Georgia. Their defense has not played – when they play a passing offense or an offense that can throw the ball, their defense hasn't been that great. Their secondary is not that good, and they haven't been good at turning the ball over. So, in that regard, I think Georgia should be able to, score at will or, whatever that may look like with Mike Bobo and Carson Beck at helm. But Georgia should be able to score points. Really, it all depends on the defense. Again, it's all about 1-2 with this defense. Are they going to be able to stop the run? Are they willing to stop the run? Are they willing to tackle and wrap up? You saw it against Texas, they were. You saw it against Tennessee, they were. You saw it against Ole Miss, they weren't. You saw it against UMass, they weren't. You saw it in the first half against Alabama, they weren't. So it's really about want to, and we'll see if this. We'll see. I would expect Georgia to put his best foot forward in this game.
Prime time towards the end of the season. I would expect. I mean, if we've seen anything about Kirby's teams, is they do tend to show up well for these primetime games, right? So Ole Miss is a fluke, so we'll not mention that.
Right.
But overall, I would expect Georgia to show up and hopefully get a little bit of breathing room and not for once not play from behind. That would be great.
Well, that's the thing. I can see this game. I can see this game being where Georgia starts off slow again in the first quarter and gets behind. And it's just a frustrating first half. And the second half looks like a completely different team. I can see that happening. I mean, it's almost been every game.
I agree.
So, I know Tech fans, I mean, they are convinced. It's really sad that they're convincing themselves because I got to tell you, I guess we'll do final scores here in a minute. I feel like Georgia's going to boat race them. I've watched begrudgingly too much of Tech. I don't see it. The only factor would be if Carson Beck turns the ball over, if the defense decides to play like they did against UMass, and it's just that, then okay, then we're in it for a knife fight. But again, Georgia doesn't have doesn't have the talent. I've watched them play against teams that are not even up to Georgia snuff and struggle with them. I just think Georgia's going to be able to do what they want. And I know it's a rivalry, and I know Tech's going to come out and because Brent Key and all the players talk about how much they hate Tech. That's great. That's wonderful. But you got to play, and you got to line up and play. And I don't see it.
Well, I'm going to stick with my based on what I've seen. History shows or tells me that I expect it to be, a knife fight in the first half. I fully expect Georgia to not start fast, and maybe Tech gets up on them by 7 points, and we have to claw our way back. I could see this being close up until the third quarter, and then I think just the athleticism and like we talk about with the blue chip, the 4 and 5 stars are going to start showing up. And the coaching staff that Britt Key's put together, I don't know the defensive staff is as good as I know, obviously, Buster Faulkner, but he's extremely good offensive coordinator. So they'll have a good game plan. So they're going to hang with Georgia is what I would say, and then they'll pull away in third and fourth quarter.
And I think that's probably more or less what's going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if Georgia just goes out there and has, which this team has been the rare exception to all of the other teams that have won 10 games under Kirby. They haven't had a game where they just scored 21. It's 21-0, and the ball game's over by the second quarter. We haven't had that yet. Maybe it's this game. I mean, it very well could happen. We'll see. But Tech's banged up too. They have a lot of injuries, so watch that as the game progresses because depth's going to definitely play a factor here. And if Georgia can just win the war of nutrition, I would think that it will be a lopsided score. All right, go ahead and give us your game prediction.
I believe Georgia wins 35-17.
35-17. All right, I'm going to go with Georgia 42, Tech 10. I think Tech will probably score 10 points in the first quarter, second quarter, and then it's just going to be an onslaught. I haven't been that impressed. I think that quarterback's good, and I think Tech can run the ball, but I think they're going to start getting behind and they're going to start pressuring, and that's when everything will collapse. So I have Georgia covering, and I think I have Georgia winning big. Also, if you're at the game, be loud. Don't sit on your hands. This is a night game. It's the last Georgia game. Thankfully, we got all the senior day stuff out. That was last week.
But it's still a pretty special night for those seniors. I mean, you think about it, Tate, Carson.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
the senior day activities. I think kind of put some malaise.
Oh, I agree with that.
So, and that's what I'm saying. So there shouldn't be any. I think this team will be ready to go. If you're there in person, be loud the whole time. And just run it up on these guys because oh God, if there's any semblance of a moral victory, they're just impossible to deal with. They're the most annoying. They're up there. I think they're probably number 3 for me as the most annoying fan base. They don't exist, but they talk so much.
That's sort of the way I view them. It's sort of like a gnat while you're trying to eat a picnic lunch. They just get in the way of everything.
And they talk all the time about us. It's so annoying.
Well,
all right. Let's do this real quick. Even though we're not supposed to look ahead, Kirby said we're focused on Tech. We're gonna take the opportunity to look ahead. Who you have in the A&M Texas game?
A&M at home, night game. I think that's going to be a hard place for Texas to play. In some ways, it'd be better if Texas wins, but for Georgia. But I'm going to pick Texas A&M. I'm going to go, and they're going to pull it out.
I'm with you. I think A&M. A&M is still a 5-point underdog. I at home. I just don't see it. I think A&M is going to win outright. All right, Tennessee and Vanderbilt.
Where are they playing?
They're playing at Vandy. Tennessee's a 10.5-point favorite. This is a noon kickoff.
I think Tennessee beat them. I'd like to go with Vandy, but I just don't see it.
I'll take Vandy to cover, but Tennessee to win. South Carolina, Clemson. That's a noon game.
South Carolina, no hesitation.
I don't know. That game's basically a toss-up to me, but I'll go with Carolina because they have the better offense. Kentucky, Louisville. Louisville is a 4-point favorite.
I'll take Louisville. Kentucky's just had an atrocious year.
Yeah, I'll go with Louisville as well. Last two. LSU, Oklahoma. LSU is a 6-point favorite at night in Death Valley.
I used to think that mattered. I'll take LSU though.
I'll take Oklahoma to cover, LSU to win. I don't think LSU's that great, but if they lose, Brian Kelly's done.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Iron Bowl. That is a 3:30, the traditional 3:30 spot. Alabama is the 11.5-point favorite. Can Auburn go to a bowl game? Can Hugh Freeze pull off?
I think they shot their load, man. I really do. Against it was Oklahoma, right?
A&M.
A&M. I'm sorry, A&M. I think they shot their load. I think Alabama beats them.
If Alabama loses this game,
Taylor needs to just catch a flight back to Washington.
that might be the worst thing that could ever happen. Kalen DeBoer, Jalen Milroe, that whole team. It might be some bad things. So I think Auburn will make it a ball game, but I don't suspect they'll win. I'll take Alabama. All right. Remember, like, subscribe, comment, tell us what you think about the game. We'll be back. What day you think? Probably Sunday. Do a recap on the game and all of college football. Because we get all Saturday to watch every single game. Isn't that great? No care in the world. It's great. So we're good on that. Remember to subscribe or follow us on all social media platforms: X, TikTok, Instagram at Terminus Sports _ATL. And then Unishippers, our presenting sponsors, our lovely presenting sponsors. Give us a pitch.
Yeah, Unishippers helps small to medium-sized businesses reduce their shipping costs, whether it's an envelope or a pallet or anything going internationally. We could probably help you and show you some ways to help you reduce your costs. If you think we can, feel free to reach out to Holland Martin at Unishippers Atlanta.
All right. Izzy, do you have any comments about the Georgia Tech game? No. All right. Well, we'll see you guys on the other side.
See ya.